Welcome. I'm your host, Dustin.
I'm also Dustin.
And I'm Anna.
And we have a very special guest today, Mike Lombardo, who many of you may know as a special effects artist and a director, and mainly probably from his, what I'd rather say, very Christmassy movie, I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday. Mike, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great now that I'm here.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. So we all have a little bit of questions, and I'm going to go ahead and lead it off to Anna right now for her to kind of open up the show over here, and let's get to know Mike a little bit.
Fire away.
Yeah, Mike, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. I think something that interests me as well as both the Dustins are like what inspires filmmakers to get into movies. Like we all love movies, we're all into them, but what was the one or two that really just kind of cemented that in your head that like, okay, this is what I want to do?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I don't know if I could pick just two, but growing up, I was a video store kid.
Okay.
I haunted the video store obsessively, looking at all the cool covers and just picking random shit. So the movies that really did it for me as a kid, I got Chud was a huge one.
Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude.
12 minutes. I'm obsessed with Chud. That was a big one. Evil Dead, specifically Evil Dead 2 and 3. Like that's when I started learning the behind the scenes of these movies and
Nice.
realizing that people were making them in backyards. Peter Jackson was a huge Dead Alive.
Yeah, nice
Dead
Dead Alive
shirt.
changed my life. Anything from Romero. Dawn of the Dead was another one that I probably wore that tape out when I rented it. I would rewind the head explosion over and over.
So good.
Hell yeah.
As a healthy, 9-year-old child does.
Mhm.
And I went to school and bragged about it.
Guess what I watched?
Yeah, you guys will never believe what I just seen.
Well, actually, one of the earliest influences I had, though, honestly, was Dr. Fives Rises Again, the Vincent Price movie. I got
Oh,
it.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I begged my mom to get it for me because the original cover is Zombie Fives like holding the mask of Vincent Price, and I thought he was holding his own head. So I begged her to buy the tape for me, and I was obsessed with it. It was the first videotape I ever owned that was mine. So I made all of my friends in elementary school watch this, and like revisiting it now as an adult, I'm like, this is like a weird, like super dry, like late 60s, early 70s, like British comedy horror. I'm like, I have no idea why it appealed to me as a child, but like these poor elementary school kids were probably not into this at all.
That is so
What
funny.
is this?
Yeah.
But I love it. It's the precursor to Saw,
Yeah.
Yeah.
ahead of his time.
I have a similar
Very
story.
nice.
Like, my grandma didn't know what From Dusk Till Dawn was. And I received that for Christmas one year when I was way too young. And, I am how I am now because of From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yes. Yes.
Hell
That's
yeah.
a good one too. So a lot of that stuff like video store corrupted me. I grew up watching Tales from the Crypt. I'd stay up till midnight on Tuesdays to watch it on Fox.
Very nice.
Censored.
Mhm.
I was always into horror as a kid. Like everything, I loved making things. Like creepy crawlers is one of the big things that got me into like mold making. And I learned about that.
Oh, yeah,
So
dude.
any of that kind of stuff was really big. And then my other huge influence, honestly, was 90s Nickelodeon, like Pete and Pete and Are You Afraid of the Dark? All
Yeah.
that stuff. Like, that
Yeah.
was like drugs to me. Like
Ren and
I
Right.
Basically, baby.
yeah,
Mhm.
Ren and Stimpy, all that stuff. And it's really cool because as an adult, because of filmmaking, I've been able to meet and talk to so many of the people that created those things.
That's
And
so
it's
cool.
so, I mean, I have literally, I don't know if you can see this, I've got Pete and Pete tattooed on me.
That is so
That's
cool.
so cool.
It was the Petunia, the bus driver, right? He had the mermaid.
She was just a pinup model. I did hang out with Stu the bus driver though at a bar once. It was pretty cool.
That's so
That's
cool.
rad.
Got to meet the entire cast and crew, but that is a story for another time. So all these weird, disparate influences kind of morphed my early love of horror movies, and then watching Monster Vision on TNT was a huge one. Joe Bob Briggs, I learned about a lot of movies that way.
Joe Bob.
And then back when the Sci-Fi Channel played movies and was SCI-FI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good old days.
A lot of stuff
Not
like Rambo
Sniffy.
found.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took a hard downturn in the last decade, but the glory days, uncensored movies like that. Just being a weird kid in general, like video games, old computer games, and Goosebumps, and like all that shit. I'm sure my story is not unique. I'm sure that all of you went through the exact same stuff with a healthy dose of childhood trauma and social.
Yes.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
All work together, and here we are.
Yeah,
Hell
here
yeah,
we are.
dude.
Isn't that funny how the world works?
Hell yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people that I've talked to on the show with, kind of seeing where everything started with them is pretty similar. And
Mhm.
it's always like going to the movie store and picking out our favorite thing and seeing all these covers and whatnot. And like, I always just think back, like, man, I miss that so much.
Yeah.
And we'll be diving into something that you're working on relatively soon because Big D's got some
Oh, I'm fucking
questions.
once Dustin told me about that project, dude, I'm all in.
Oh yeah,
I'm
dude.
all in because
I'm actually not talking about the chicken drumsticks I'm cooking downstairs right now.
not that one, not yet, not yet. But no, I'm part of a show that our whole premise is you walk by that fucking movie cover in Blockbuster and you want to rent it, type of thing. So I connect with that, dude. Like I was a the movie store kid. I got to work in a movie store, which was tight, for a
That's
good.
the one thing I never
Lucky.
got to do.
I know,
Yeah.
me too. They never hired me for whatever
Yeah.
reason, and I'm like, I'm a prime candidate. I'm perfect for
I
that.
wanted it so bad, and I never got to do that. I almost worked at Suncoast Video,
Nice.
which would have been great, but I instead opted to sleep with the manager. So, I mean, it was kind of like...
Boing.
We had something down here in Florida called Movie Stop, and it was like the equivalent to GameStop, but with just movies, and being in Orlando, we have Spooky Empire and Spookala and shit like that. So I had like boutique stuff come through the store, which is my niche in the store. Like they see that shit, they're like, put it in Dustin's box, he's gonna buy it.
That's cool. Yeah.
I was at Suncoast. When I was a kid, they would I was friends with the other manager, Vicky. She would be like, she'd call, she's like, hey, we got this movie in Killer Clowns or something or other. I figured you'd want it. I would like, that was my white whale for a decade. I was haunting every video store I could find on vacation. Like, I'd go on the boardwalk and try to find a copy of this movie. I learned about it on AOL chat, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And then MGM re-released it back in like 98 or 99 or something. And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, holy shit, finally. But they would save it for me because they knew I was going to buy it.
It's so cool.
It's so fun. The Chiodo brothers fucking rule, dude.
Oh, they're the best.
Yep.
It's so good.
Yeah. I love just going down memory lane like that and just hearing everybody's view of that time of where we are and where horror is now, especially. And I kind of want to jump a little bit ahead to one of my favorite Christmas movies, believe it or not. I watch it every year. I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday. And I had the privilege of actually meeting and talking to Damien Maffei because he's a local. I live in Massachusetts, and he also lives in Massachusetts. And I know you're also not that far off. In Baston.
Fackin'.
So I kind of wanted to go ahead and pick your brain a little bit about how that project kind of came about and seeing how every year it's still talked about a lot.
Yeah, that blows my mind. I gotta say, not to pump my own ego here, but there aren't a lot of $10,000 Christmas horror movies that people talk about, one, and two, that sometimes they say nice things about. Doesn't happen very often. So I'm very, very flabbergasted, honestly, that people are still talking about it and they like it. I'm really happy. I mean, I'm very proud of it, and I'm proud of all the work that everybody did, but I didn't expect it to still have legs after 8 years. But to take you back to where it came from, so actually I have a prop I can show you.
Oh, hell yeah, let's go.
Visual aid, I guess. So this is a short story collection I wrote called Please Don't Tap on the Glass and Other Tales of Melancholy and Grotesque. White Doomsday is in this book. It was originally published in a book called A Very Strange House Christmas, which has been out of print for a long time. But I wrote it back in 2012 for that anthology. And the origin of it was my mom was hospitalized with stage 4 kidney failure.
Oh.
So they took her into the ICU, went to the ER, and they're basically like, hey, you have 3% kidney function. You shouldn't be alive. And I'm telling the story calmly because she is alive. Spoiler.
Okay.
She actually worked on this movie.
Oh, nice.
She was in and out of the hospital for like a year. Like, she was in the ICU for months at a time. And we didn't know what was going to happen. I honestly thought that she was not going to make it. And it was one of the most traumatic experiences of my entire life. And all of my brothers were in different states. They were in the military. So I was the one who was still like around. So I was the go-between with her and the doctors and my family, and I ended up being in this weird role reversal where I was the Rock and I was trying to shield my mom from the reality of what was actually happening and shield my family.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a incredibly traumatic experience. But I basically, to vent off all of that anxiety and depression, I wrote this short story that basically is about watching someone you care about fading away and not being able to help them, and just the powerlessness and how horrible that is, and the inevitability of your own mortality and all that kind of stuff, and family dynamics. And growing up, you know, my dad was in a really bad car accident, so he was disabled and wasn't able to work. So my mom was working like 4 jobs and taking care of me and my 3 brothers. But no matter how bad shit was, we always had a birthday. We always had Christmas. I had no idea until I was much older how awful things really were. And that like floored me. So all this stuff ended up bleeding into this short story about a mother and her 7-year-old starving to death in a bomb shelter after the end of the world. And she decides she's going to give him one last Christmas. You know, she's shielding him from the reality of the world. And that's where it all kind of came from. So I wrote the short story. It was published, and it was, I say popular loosely because, I mean, people reviewed it and talked about it, but the reviews, the one that was, I want to frame this one day and hang it on my wall. Someone said, I read, you know, Strange House Christmas. They went through every story, and they're all like goofy, like gory, fun stories, or they're like weird, like sex, gross out stories and stuff. And then my story was the last one in the book. And they review all of it. They're like, oh, I love this one about a Tickle Me Elmo that was like filled with maggots, and this one's a killer Santa Claus. This one's like a reindeer eats someone's dick. And like, and then they're like, and then I got to Mike Lombardo's story, I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday, and it was a 1-sentence review after that. It said, and I wanted to slit my fucking wrists.
Ooh.
That was it. And I was like,
oh my god.
I'm like, I don't know if that's a good review or a bad review. Like,
where's the compliment at? Yeah.
Yeah, but it stuck with me, and that kind of became the general consensus. A lot of people were like, wow, that was a really powerful story, but it like destroyed me.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, you know, I had just started like submitting prose, like short stories, to like actual publishers, because before that I never really sent my stuff out anywhere. I would just write and leave it set on my hard drive to collect digital dust for decades. So I had no idea like what people were going to think. And, you know, our executive producer for White Doomsday is Brian Keane. If you're familiar, he's a huge horror author. All of the entire horror writing community lives in Lancaster, Pennsylvania for some weird reason. And I discovered that when I was like 17. So I became friends with all of them. So to say that imposter syndrome lives in my head is an understatement, because literally all of them are like actual authors. So I was very scared to like start creeping out into the world. They're like, no, these stories are great. You should write. And then to get reviews like I wanted to slit my wrists, I'm like, I don't know how to feel. So years went by, and people always bring up that story. They're like, dude, you should make this into a movie. This would be great. All of my old short films for Real Splatter, for my company, were all like horror comedy and like weird, gross out stuff. It was more like Trauma, John Waters, like that kind of stuff. And I wanted to do more serious stuff, but I didn't feel confident enough in my own abilities. And like, I use sarcasm and humor as a shield, essentially.
Sure.
You know, if you make a shitty low budget horror movie, it's a comedy. But if you make a shitty drama, it's just awful. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right. So I'm like, you know, let's make White Doomsday as a short story. Like this could work maybe, or as a short film. And I started to break it down. I'm like, can we do this with no money? I'm working on a pizza shop, you know, so I'm like, I got to self-finance it. And we started shooting this thing, and I'm like, all right, let's do it. I think we can pull this off for no money. And then we got like 2 weeks into production, and I started rough cutting it. And I'm like, we have like 40 minutes of movie here already. And I'm like, shit, I think we're accidentally making a feature. So had to regroup and to fix the script a little bit. I'm like, okay, let's just go. I mean, everyone was on board. I'm like, no one was getting paid. So I'm like, we had $10,000, and I'm like, all right, fuck it, let's go. And 4 years later, we finished it.
Oh yeah.
Shot on weekends, and then we ended up on the festival circuit and did really, really well. Won a bunch of awards, got distribution through Scream Team, and people. I'll tell you, the world premiere at Nightmares Film Festival in Ohio, no one had seen the movie except for the immediate people that were like editing it with me. So at that point, after 4 years, I had absolutely no idea what I was even looking at anymore. I'm like, this does nothing to me anymore. I'm like, this could be complete garbage. I don't know. I mean, some of the people that reviewed it would agree. But I was like, I don't know if this is good or bad, whatever, but we got into this festival, fuck it. We're going to drive, 12 hours to go to Ohio. So we're at the screening and it's like packed and I'm terrified, right? So
Sure. Yeah.
I judge how well a screening is going by how many people are laughing because that's what I know.
Yeah.
So the opening of the movie starts and people are like, settling in, they're chuckling, blah, blah, blah. About 4 minutes into the movie, it starts to get quiet. And then it gets like silent, like completely silent. And the movie's going and going, and I'm sitting there sinking lower and lower into my seat. And I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? And then the end happens, and the credits start to roll. And at a film festival, everybody claps. The filmmakers,
Yeah.
everyone's a big jovial environment. Everyone's clapping. Nobody clapped. And I, at this point, was on the verge of a panic attack. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the biggest humiliation of my entire life. And then one person, the slow clap starts.
The
my
slow
heart
clap.
starts to swell. And I'm like, then another person, and then it stops. And it goes silent again, and I'm like, oh God. And the credits are still going, and I'm like,
oh man,
this is bad. Where's the nearest exit? I'm going to go outside and throw up. And the lights start to come up, and they call me down for the Q&A, and the festival director hands me the microphone, and he's like, so you wrote and directed this, right? I said, yes, I did. And he said, fuck you.
Oh my God.
And I didn't know how to, I'm like, and I look up at the crowd, and everybody's crying, and I'm like,
Oh my God, dude. No, that's awesome.
I was like, holy shit. And then I was like, okay. And then I start doing the Q&A. Actually, I think the Q&A is online somewhere. You can probably find it. And then I'm crying, and everyone is crying, and it really set the tone for the rest of the festival circuit because every screening...
Anna's crying.
I'm crying. I'm a crier.
Everyone at these screenings would cry, and people would come up to me, complete strangers, like hugging me, talking about how they lost their son, or they lost their mom, or they understand, like, it turned into these weird, like, group therapy sessions with strangers, and that was, like, every screening. So I'm like, okay,
Aww, that's so nice.
I guess that I didn't fuck this up entirely.
No.
Hell yeah.
And, here we are. So that's
awesome.
the long answer to a short question. Sorry.
Yeah.
That was a great answer.
Yeah. I can totally relate to the parent in the hospital due to kidney issues. My dad is prone to growing his own kidney stones. And maybe every 3 months, they're the size of between marbles and quarters. And he has like 9. I get it, dude. I understand that completely. Like, I totally relate to that shit, dude.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the one thing I praised, because when Dustin told us we're doing this movie, we covered your movie for the holiday month.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very much appreciated. That was cool.
One thing I praised was the budget, because you can see where you put the money into this, man. Like, nothing was over the top. Everything looked polished, and I loved that.
Yeah.
And I love seeing the small dollar sign, it's like, it's impressive more than anything, it was fucking rad.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was a testament to everybody was putting in. So, I mean, it sounds cliche, but like, everyone went head first and put in 150%, but they did. I mean, all those props. I mean, my mom, that was where she really helped us. She would go out to antique stores and flea markets and yard sales with me, finding all these props. And then I would take them, and every single thing was aged and distressed. I mean, I was at 3 a.m. I'm like rolling around wearing the mom's clothes, trying to wear out the elbows and stuff, and put little holes and painting everything with spray paint. Like, it was insane. I was working full time. I'd come home from work, and then I would just work on props all night and then sleep for like 2 hours. Then we'd shoot the next day, and we just kept doing that. But it was such a blast. I'm glad that came through for you, because it was a nightmare. There's actually a feature-length documentary called Armageddon from the Cheap Seats on the Blu-ray, where I filmed like video diaries every day. We were working on it. Oh, cool. And you can see all the insanity that everybody put up with from myself, and just the conditions were so awful. It's it was wild. But yeah, without the people that made it, like, they were so fucking dedicated, which they had no reason to be. I mean, after 4 years, like, I wouldn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. I was so burnt, but they kept going, so it wouldn't have happened without them.
Yeah. And that's what Damien was saying when I was talking to him too. He was saying, like, it was a long process, but it was really worth it. For when he says, like, he loved the outcome of it. And I interviewed him, I think, like 2 years ago. And I think I just watched the movie not that long ago because I discovered it. It must have been through Screambox because I think it's been on there for a while.
Yeah, I think it's been at least a couple years, I believe, because it started off on Horror Pack did Scream Team released it. Then they did a Horror Pack release of it, and then it went to Amazon, Tubi, Plex, all that bullshit. And Screambox was one of the more recent ones, so I think the last year or two.
Yeah, I think that's where I discovered it, and I was like, wow, this because it hit me real hard, and I love movies that can do that. That can play with your emotions and make you feel a certain way. I always get more of an enjoyment out of it, whether it's sad or funny, whatever it may be. And it's definitely a movie I visit quite often. And I know it's one you're probably like, why are you doing that to yourself? But it's one that I really do enjoy, and especially with it being so low budget, being indie. I love indie films so much, and I love talking to people who create indie films. And I know that you've worked with Chris LaMattina for
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of his movies, which I got over here, and I've met him multiple times. He did some effects on
Excellent.
there.
Yep.
I've had him on the show too. I met him in person. The Heebie Jeebie TV crew, who's also over
Yeah.
by you.
Yep.
They're all great, and the community that's over there for indie films or whatever it may be, indie wise, is amazing.
Yes.
So to have you on here now to kind of complete like this giant circle of everybody around you is amazing. And yeah, man, just great job of a great film.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The guys, Chris, and like Adam Lenhart, all those guys, they're wonderful.
Adam's
because
great, man.
whenever my batteries are running low, I just look at what they're doing and I get so inspired. It's like, yes, let's do it. Let's fucking make some pimple monsters and
Hell yeah, man.
Gross some people out.
yeah,
Hell yeah.
It's always the best.
Yeah. And I think I've been friends with you on Facebook for a while, and this is like the first time we've had like an actual conversation. But I see a lot of the things you're posting about the struggles of filmmaking, and especially what you're doing right now. You had a very broken down like big post the other day about you struggling with something, and I think that's very important for people to know and hear about. Like, there's a lot of struggles that go into making films, whether it's big budget, small budget, whatever, and you find ways to overcome it. And I kind of want to dive in to this new project, and I know that Big D's got some questions over there. I have questions. I'm just really intrigued as to what Dead Format is.
So Dead Format is my second feature-length film. It is not as miserable as White Doomsday. It's miserable. Don't get me wrong. It's. I'm told that the script is pretty miserable still, but it's. I feel like it is. Whereas White Doomsday was Mike's Depression, the movie, as I like to call it. I think the Dead Format is probably one of the closest like distillations of my personality and my kind of worldview. And that I say this because other people have told me this, so
Sure.
I don't sound like I'm completely talking out of my ass. It has the darkness and the introspective melancholy of White Doomsday, but there is a little snippets and streaks of the comedy and the off-kilter weird shit that we used to do in the old real splatter movies. So I feel like for me, it's kind of both worlds, like the old stuff and the new stuff kind of coming together, because now I feel confident enough to express myself and be vulnerable, which is really what it's all about with Doomsday and this entire book. Please Don't Tap on the Glass. That's that post I made on Facebook. That's pretty much what the introduction of this book is it's hard to be vulnerable, and I'm trying to get better at doing that, because I realized that the things that I love and the things that inspired me did not emerge perfectly formed. Like reading a book like which I happen to have a copy right here. If you haven't read this yet, Stuart Gordon's Naked Horror in the Theater. Oh my God, it is incredible, because this like they're so. If you watch the integral cut of Reanimator that Arrow put out, like they did like the bonus disc that was basically the original first cut of the movie with all the footage in it, like all the deleted scenes, everything, like Stuart Gordon's first cut. I watched this and I'm like, man, this is fucking awful. Like, what the hell? How? This is so bad. There's like an entire subplot about Dr. Hill like having hypnotic powers. It's awful. And then I watched the regular movie and I'm like, Stuart Gordon is a fucking genius. And he started with a giant lump of clay and he sculpted it into this beautiful sculpture that is Reanimator.
Mhm.
And I was like, wow, he didn't just, it was like, this guy was his first movie. How the hell did he like just, every decision is perfect? It wasn't. You have to work at it. You have to have people with you that can check you and say no. And it's a process. And that was so big for me. And I'm like, wow, you know, people only want to post their victories. They only want to show all the things that went right. And, you know, when you're crowdfunding a movie, you don't want to tell people that shit's fucking up. Like, that's not a great idea. I still did it because I'm an idiot. But, you know, but it's important to show that side of it for other filmmakers. And I'm like, man, I wish when I was growing up that more people were as open as Stuart Gordon is on that. Or J.R. Bookwater, who made The Dead Next Door. He's got this great book called B-Movie Filmmaking in the 1990s and Beyond. And that is, it opens with him saying, this is a cautionary tale. If you want to be a filmmaker, do the exact opposite of everything that I did. That's hardcore to have that kind of the balls to just be like, yeah, I fucked up this stuff. Here you go. Just let it all out there. It was so inspiring. And I'm like, wow, these are people I really respect. And they're airing it out. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do that. And hopefully someone gets something out of this. So I don't even know what tangent I just went off on, but Dead Format is about, the story of Dead Format is about a kid who's a VHS collector who grew up in the video store. His father passes away, and he moves back into his childhood home. And he is kind of dealing with the aftermath of the grief of his dad dying, and he's kind of alienated from his family and friends. And he finds out that the video store that he frequented as a child, Video Castle, is going out of business. So he goes down there to buy up their horror tapes, as one does, and discovers a tape he's never heard of called Next to Die, which, spoiler, ends up being a not great movie for him to own, and bad stuff happens. It's kind of a riff on the cursed videotape trope. It's actually the first story in Please Don't Tap on the Glass. And it's honestly, of all the short fiction I've ever written, it's probably one of my favorite stories. My father passed away in real life about 7 years ago, so I was dealing with that and kind of thinking about, like, we mourn people a lot, but we don't really mourn places as much. I mean, some people do, but like I see this coming up more and more lately. I feel like people are posting like pictures of like old Wendy's, like sunrooms and like Kmart and stuff like that. And it sounds like a consumerist nightmare, like hell world that we're living in, where people are nostalgic for businesses. But like those stores and those things, you know, they had an impact on your life. Like I have such fond memories of going to like Kmart and finding Dr. Fives Rises Again. And like all these moments that I remember with my dad and my family took place at Kmart or Wendy's or, you know, Suncoast. Like they're inextricably linked with our lives. And the video store, even more so, that was a huge place for me. And when my home life wasn't good, I escaped into movies and I would go to the video store. So there's so much wrapped up into that. And I know that I'm sure for the same with you guys, like it meant so much, like those formative years where, you know, right now, you could ask me, you know, what do I think of Terrifier, right? And my actual thoughts on Terrifier would not come out uncensored because it's a bad move, because there are a lot of fans of Terrifier and it's also an indie movie. But I am self-conscious enough that I'm not going to shit on an indie movie or something, or other people are going to do that, right? And my point with that is, and I'm just using Terrifier as a random example because it's very popular right now, right? So I don't feel like I'm punching down. When you're a kid, if you watch that movie and you hate it, you just hate it. It doesn't matter. But if you loved it, you just fucking loved it. You didn't understand why there was no external factors where it's like, oh, it's cool to like The Witch. Doesn't fucking matter. When you're 9, you know, fucking Bloodsucking Pharaohs in Pittsburgh is peak cinema. Because it touched you somehow. And
Ghoulies 2!
Yeah, fucking A. And Ghoulies 2 holds up, which is even better. When you're an adult and you go back and watch those movies that you loved as a kid, it's pure love. And then when you go back and some of them do hold up, it's like, wow, actually there's some really interesting stuff going on here, like really good cinematography, or the effects are great. But it's like when you're a kid and you're you know, everything is new to you, and that was all pre-internet, you know, there was no external factors like impacting your judgment or your views on things. It was just, you love what you love, you don't like what you don't like. And I think those are the purest interests. And that's why I really love about Guillermo del Toro,
Mm.
who is a filmmaker who I'm not a fan of his movies, honestly. I know that's an unpopular opinion too.
Man.
I love Kronos. Fucking love Kronos. Right? Mimic is great. He's not a bad filmmaker by any means. I'm sorry about going on this tangent.
No, you're good,
But
man.
I'm not a fantasy fan, so like his stuff doesn't do it for me, but the man is insanely talented. Like everything about his movies is great. They just don't work for me necessarily.
Sure. That's
Right.
fair.
But I could sit and listen to that fucking guy talk for days.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Everything he says just gets me right in the heart.
Mhm.
Like he honors and cherishes his childhood influences to such a huge degree, and it's just he has such a pure imagination, and I respect that so much. And I think that the video store was that for me. It's where I learned about all the movies that I know about. I had no idea that when I was wandering the aisles of Blockbuster and Hollywood Video and A to Z Video and all the mom and pops, that it was cementing my future. I had no idea. There was just a thing. I'm just going to rent these movies. When I rented Dead Alive with my cousin, I had no idea it was going to change my life. So,
Right.
It's about mourning the video store, in that era. So a part of the movie takes place in like 1994. It's set about 2001 to 2003 ish, and there's some flashbacks in the early days.
Sure.
But it's just about grief and loss and chainsaws and all sorts of stuff, and it's really,
Okay.
really, really violent, like really violent.
Nice.
Right?
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's got some fun stuff in it, but the short story, as I've learned with a lot of the stuff that I write, the reviews are always like, wow, this was really funny, and then it made me like insanely depressed. Like this gutted me, or man, that ending really fucked me up. It's like good. That's a good thing, and that's kind of what Dead Format is. So it's melancholy and sad, but it's got some fun in it, and it's very, very, very nostalgic. And I'm trying really hard not to do like Stranger Things nostalgia, where it's just like, look at the pet rock, let's go watch Jaws. Like,
Yeah.
it's more. Excuse me. It's more about the feeling of what it was like being in the video store and collecting tapes and that kind of stuff. Like all the, I've been going crazy finding all the set dressing and stuff that's period, and that's part of it. But I feel like it's much more of an actual statement on nostalgia itself. And, sometimes living in the past like that's not a good thing. Sometimes you need to be able to let go and move forward. And that's something I struggle with in my own life. And I'm hoping that just like Doomsday was me dealing with my mom and my family life, that this will be like an exorcism of my debilitating obsession with nostalgia of being a child, and that I can move forward a little bit and then have nostalgia for when I was 24 or something instead. I don't know.
Sure, yeah. So my questions, they lead into have everything to do with the movie store, man. And we kind of touched on it a little bit ago, and I'm actually looking at the IMDb page for I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday. Your movie poster is striking.
Thank you.
Very striking. It's a memorable poster. It fucking rules. And this is going to be a broad question for everyone because I want everyone's input on it. But we'll start with Mike. Do you have two movie posters that have impacted you so hard that they have lived with you since you've seen them?
Yes. So the I'm Dreaming of White Doomsday poster was made by Mark Schoenbach of Sadist Art Designs. Great guy, great artist. Interestingly, the original design for it was going to be the skeleton in the gas mask holding a snow globe in his hand, and we were all set to go start. And about 12 hours later, the first news broke for a movie. I don't know if you guys have actually heard of this. It's called Krampus.
Oh, yeah.
And the poster is a demon Krampus hand holding a snow globe with a family in it. And I literally wanted to punch a wall. Like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. We had talked about it for months. And I'm like, well, we have to change it now. So we altered it slightly. But that poster was awesome. I loved how he did that poster. And then the Dead Format poster was done by Chris Barnes from Brutal Posters, and I am absolutely in love with the poster design he did for this. But the posters that always impacted me, biggest one, my all-time favorite VHS cover ever is Headless Eyes.
Okay.
Not sure. I actually have behind me in my giant wall of
I've been scoping out your physical collection, dude, because I'm a huge physical media collector as well.
This is just DVDs. I just recently rearranged all this shit. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I'm not going to take up too much more time. I have it. Oh, here it is. This is the crappy DVD version of it, but you can get an idea of the cover. I have the big box VHS. It was something that I always saw at the video store, and It fascinated me, and it always stuck with me. And there's a little sticker on it that says "Too gory for the silver screen." One day I finally rented it, and it's the worst fucking movie I've ever seen in my life. It's so bad. And that's where I learned a valuable lesson that when you go to the video store, you're essentially playing Russian roulette with movie covers because
I feel you.
You never know. It's mostly garbage. So that one was a huge one, and then I'm going to cheat and give you 3. The other 2 were
totally
good. I just was obsessed with that cover, and Zombie with We Are Going to Eat You. I actually have an original 70s poster hanging in my living room that Brian Keane gave me as a gift once.
That's awesome.
And it's like one of the greatest posters of all time. Like,
very nice.
I could stare at it endlessly. It's so fucking good.
Yeah. Anna, what about you?
So actually, one of them was Dead Alive.
Yeah, how could I forget?
The woman pulling her mouth out with the skeleton. That shit scared me so much. Because it was like looking right ahead. So anywhere you were in the aisle, it felt like it was following you, right? So I would purposely avoid that area because I thought it was the scariest movie ever. Yeah, and here I honestly didn't watch it for the first time until like 2 years ago. And I was like, boy, was I wrong. that was
complete opposite of what you'd think it would be.
Total opposite. Yeah. And then the other one's probably going to be the Pennywise poster, the It poster with Tim Curry on it.
Okay.
Where he's ripping through the video box?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That shit. I don't have a lot of very vivid memories of like being that young, but my parents were at their friend's house and I was always the youngest. So at this time I was probably like 4, if that, maybe. But I so remember this. And it was like their sons were 2 older boys, like 7 and 8. And they knew I was scared of Pennywise. And my mom loved horror. I watched a ton of horror too young, but I would not fuck with Pennywise. And he had a poster on the back of his bedroom door with that poster, and I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I can vividly remember like them pulling me, like trying to get me to look at the poster, and my mom would laugh so hard telling that story. She'd be like, your little legs just came running down that hallway.
Oh my
I was
goodness.
so scared. But yeah, that one affected me.
I still have that tape sealed.
Yeah.
Like,
wow. I have the
Yeah,
I have the 2-pack. It's not sealed anymore, but I love that movie.
Mine is still sealed.
Yeah,
Little D,
what about scared me?
What about you, Little D?
Actually, it was one that we talked about not that long ago. Was the Jack Frost horror movie cover? The
that one too.
The lenticular.
Yeah. Oh man, that one was another one.
That one got me.
Peak video store.
Mercy.
Yeah, because
Peak.
We talked about it when we covered the movie. They always had it next to the fucking Michael Keaton Jack Frost one. Always at my movie store. It was that one, and then House, not the Japanese one, the one with the finger,
hand,
and the doorbell,
the button, yeah.
Those are mine too.
Another great one.
So funny story, Little D. That has been my favorite movie poster forever. Was House 2.
House 2 is good.
It's a little further away from the bell. You know, that's a better tattoo image.
Yeah.
But another really striking one for me, man, is Pumpkinhead. When that shit carved in her forehead, dude. That's my one of my all-time favorite movie posters, dude. And
Ed Harley.
Ed Harley. When Shout Factory put that shit out, dude, I immediately flipped that cover from the new art to that art, man. I'm like, that's too good. But yeah, like we've been talking about this, and like you said, it's a Russian roulette when it comes to oil painted movie covers, because you never know what the fuck you're gonna get, dude. And like I said earlier, man, I have a whole show based on that where you take that chance. But my last question kind of really had to do with what you just looked at, your physical media collection, dude. And I wanted to know what your stance on it was, and are your titles coming out physically? Do you know, or
as far as like the actual movies?
Yeah.
So White Doomsday was released through Scream Team Releasing. So we did a Blu-ray, a DVD, and a VHS of that.
Oh, a tape.
Dead format will
VHS?
be,
Oh, no way.
What's that?
I said, VHS, no way.
That was surreal as hell. We did like a limited set of 13 of them that were like signed by the entire cast and crew, and they sold very quickly.
Ooh,
but nice. I was like holding it, and I'm like, I made this. This is on VHS.
Cool,
what a weird thing. So you'll be seeing it on the shelf of Video Castle in that format. Actually,
Cool.
We're doing a whole series of fake video boxes. If you follow any of the updates, you'll see a bunch of them. But one of them is I'm Dreaming of the White Doomsday 2, Simon's Quest. So that's the sequel. That's an Italian Mad Max knockoff where Damien, he was captured by a band of cannibals. That's why he doesn't come back in the original movie. So he fights his way out and makes his way back to the bomb shelter, only to discover what's happened to his family. So he's on the verge of suicide, and he wanders out into the wastes, and he finds a little boy whose family was killed by mutants, and he takes him under his wing as hoping to redeem his soul for not being able to protect his own family, and he battles the mutants and apocalyptic creatures out
sick.
in the world.
I want to watch
Full
that.
cover art and stuff for that. Just the complete polar opposite of White Doomsday, but it's a Castlevania 2 joke.
Yeah, I
Simon's
love
Quest.
it. Love it.
Good idea, though.
But so then, in dead format itself is going to be the one of the Kickstarter or Indiegogo perks is a Blu-ray, so that'll obviously happen, and then hopefully we'll get distribution with a company. I mean, it's a deal breaker to not have physical media for me. Like, I could give a shit about streaming. I want it out.
Yeah,
we will probably be doing. Well, there is a sold out VHS release fit on the Indiegogo, and then I was approached by another company about potentially doing a VHS release when the movie is done. So hopefully that will happen as well. So yes, to answer your question, there will be some physical media of some form. I just don't know through who or when or what, but I'll make sure that it's out there somewhere.
Awesome. Yeah, because like we're all huge into physical media, but I loved hearing about the faux movies because down here in Orlando, we have Universal Studios and we have Halloween Horror Nights. There has been 2 houses called Slaughter Cinema where they put, it's like an old drive-in, and they had like Attack of the Swamp Yeti, Shitty's Kids, Curse of the Beast Baby, shit like that, dude.
That's so cool. I gotta get down there. Like, I'm so hyped to get down there sometime.
Oh man, I love faux shit though. Like movies within movies, you know, what's the most famous? The Angels with Filthy Souls, Home Alone.
Yep,
you know,
absolutely.
you know, stuff like that.
We're doing one of my favorites we did for dead format so far is Leprechaun, and it's actually written in the script. But there's actually the what happens next will scare you. The pimple monster that I made for that. We're reusing that as a mutated prison inmate because it's like a riff on Men Behind the Sun. There's a whole backstory for the movie. I won't get into it, but it's in dead format. But we have my girlfriend wearing that costume, but with an inmate outfit, and she's got a knife. And on the back of it, there's a picture of her puking green slime into my mouth.
Oh,
for one of the so many photo shoots. It's been so much fun. And we did Mennonite of the Living Dead is another one that's been like a stupid inside joke for like 15 years. And I'm like, you know what? We're gonna make a video box of it. Why the fuck not?
Oh so, man, I love
having a blast doing that. If nothing else comes of this movie, at least I got to make all these fake video boxes.
Right?
Yeah.
Hell yeah,
Silver lining.
Yeah,
hell yeah. Well, I guess we can get off on right now. Anna, do you have any last questions that you wanna swing over to Mike?
Yes, one final question, and this can be kind of for everybody too, but I was interested in hearing what your favorite or some of your favorite horror movies were from 2024.
That's a great question. I'm trying to remember. I honestly don't really keep up on new movies a ton. I usually you can't see it, but next to me is 2 like 5-foot stacks of sealed Blu-rays, and then there's another shelf that's entirely sealed Blu-rays that I have not watched yet. So I'm still working through the backlog, but stuff that was newer that I watched. I went to go see The Substance.
Nice.
I enjoyed that. I thought that was a lot of fun. Some really, really cool effects. Loved Demi Moore in there. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah, me too.
What the fuck else did we watch? We saw Y2K. I wasn't a huge fan of that.
Okay.
I actually had fun.
Moments.
Yeah, I had fun with that one. See, I didn't like Bodies because I felt like it was like too newer of a generation for me. I was like, this is just lame. I can't get into it. Y2K felt like that kind of vibe, but for the 90s babies.
That's exactly. And I appreciate it. I went to go see it, honestly, selfishly, because I wanted to see what their set dressing looked like, because we're also making a movie set in like 2000. But
research.
It was a lot sillier than I thought. Not that I didn't think it was going to be silly. I expected more of a Maximum Overdrive pastiche, and it was like actually like way goofier.
Yeah.
Which was fine. I mean, it had moments. It's just I didn't think it was very funny, but I liked stuff about it. In a Violent Nature, I went to go see. I really like that, actually. I like that a lot.
It was interesting.
I thought that was really funny when people got really mad about it. Like, this whole movie is just him walking. And I was like, well, there's like 13 minutes of walking. But I mean, the entire movie takes place from the point of view of the killer.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, there's no story and there's no character development. And I'm like, this is like a Friday the 13th movie. And I'm like, I love him to death, but this is not different. It's just the POV is different. It's the same crappy slasher movie.
Yeah.
It's just told differently. I don't know why you have a problem with this.
Very interesting concept. You had
Yeah,
to get
that
it
was
too.
cool.
People
Oh,
just didn't
dude.
get it.
When
Yeah,
he walked through the fucking lake, dude, that was so cool.
Yeah.
Seeing,
I was
seeing
like,
point
that's
A to point B, man, it was so rad, man.
I enjoyed the shit out of that. Trying to think what else I saw lately.
If you have not watched Strange Darling,
That's on my list. I've heard nothing but good things.
oh, I highly recommend. Don't watch a trailer. Don't go in blind. That's the best way to watch it.
That reminds. I will definitely do that. That reminds me of, speaking of blind watching stuff, The Coffee Table.
Mm-hmm.
I blind watched that, and holy shit, that was
yeah.
I haven't watched that.
Okay, I'll tell you about it a little bit later, Anna.
Okay.
Or you can go in blind. You can go in blind.
dark.
Yeah. But no,
That was another great surprise for me.
Frogman, you know, that
I
movie
didn't see that. I heard that was great too. I mean to pick it up. Is it good?
Frogman's great.
fucks.
Yeah,
I
Frogman.
love TerrorVision. They're a fucking great label.
Oh, dude, I
huge
can't
fan
wait.
of theirs.
I've pre-ordered their Rumpelstiltskin 4K. Man, I can't wait.
What a time to be alive.
I'll go fucking rub.
Rumpelstiltskin on 4K, like a deluxe box set. Like,
Yeah,
what a time to be
I
alive.
got the one that didn't have the shirt, so the
Okay.
second one. But Here for Blood, wrestling horror comedy, slapped. So
I
fucking fun.
don't think I've heard of that one.
Pro wrestler turns babysitter. House invasion from a cult.
It's
Oh,
great.
wow. Okay, that sounds
That's it,
wonderful.
dude.
Sold.
And
Yeah.
Late Night with the Devil was my
that
number
was-
one.
That's another one on my list.
That was great.
Oh, you gotta watch. I really loved Abigail. Man, that one was so much fun. I know
I just
they.
wish the trailer
did-
gave everything away.
Yeah,
in
I
Abigail.
saw the trailer and I was like, I feel like I just watched the movie.
Yeah,
But
unfortunately.
in its defense, it's only showing footage from like the first 30 minutes of the movie.
Okay.
Or
I'll
so.
check it out.
In
It looked
defense,
interesting.
Dan Stevens.
Dan Stevens in anything is going to be my defense always.
Hell yeah.
Cuckoo was great. Also, Big D hated it, but Cuckoo was really good.
I've heard a lot of mixed things. I didn't see it.
I hyped it up in my brain. I thought it said Appalachian, so I thought I was in for a monster movie. But no.
Well, at the time I watched Cuckoo, I was just getting over being really disappointed by Longlegs
Oh,
And-
I loved Long Legs.
and Alien Romulus. I was not a
Oh,
fan.
yeah,
no,
Alien
that's it.
Romulus, that gutted me. That movie, I am the biggest alien. I mean, you can see I have the egg on my
That's so
arm.
sick.
I'm
The
obsessed.
Romulusi.
I'm obsessed with aliens. I've been lucky enough. I was killed in 2 aliens novels now, and one of them is dedicated to me. So that's like
Hell yeah.
the greatest moment of my life.
Oh yeah.
I saw Alien Romulus, and I was really pissed when they announced it. I'm like, this is going to be crap. We don't need more alien movies. Then I saw the trailer, and I'm like, this actually looks really good. Then I saw like more trailers, and I'm like, I'm actually fuck being cautiously optimistic. Like I was like frothing. And then I went to the theater with a buddy of mine who's just as big of a fan as me, and we're both just sitting in silence while the theater's like erupting in cheers. And I'm just like, what is this? And I was so upset. I was like, man, what a fucking letdown.
Me too.
I just the deep fake we didn't need, but that's
No.
about it,
No,
man.
what
Everything
the hell?
else.
No,
No.
that
Everything
wasn't
else
a
ruled.
deep fake. That was not a deep fake. That was a fucking Instagram filter.
That's even better.
I was like,
It
what
had to
is
have been
this?
Snapchat, yeah.
There's so much. The other effects were great though. Like the practical effects, gorgeous. The sets, fucking amazing.
Yeah.
The movie is beautifully
Oh,
made.
but
It just the writing was so bad, so bad.
Agreed.
if Fede does this
Sorry,
whole thing
Big
where he
D.
films his movies in like 98% chronological order, which I think is really impressive.
Yeah. No, that is
Yep.
impressive.
So
He did that with Evil Dead too.
Yeah.
Evil Dead.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then another one. I felt
Yeah.
the same way about the Evil Dead remake. I was so hyped, and I watched it. I'm like,
love
I
fuck
love
yeah.
that.
to be fair, I have not seen it since the theater, but I was so annoyed. I'm like, this is gorgeous, but it's stupid. Like, what
It
is
rules.
this? Like, they didn't need to do
Okay.
this. So I'm gonna revisit it one day because I thought the same thing about Ash versus Evil Dead. I watched the first like 4 episodes and hated it, and then swore it off. And then like 10 years later, everyone kept yelling at me, so I bought the box set for like $10 at Walmart.
Hell yeah.
And once I got to like episode 6, it turned into like the most amazing thing ever. And I'm like,
Great
what
show.
the hell?
Great
Why
show,
did
man.
I do? I'm such an ass. So I've been known to do that before. I get very staunchly against something, and then I revisit it later, and I'm like, boy, this is what my foot tastes like, huh?
No, that's fair. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'll just eat it, all of my foot.
Yep.
Hell yeah, man. Well, this was great, Mike, getting to finally connect with you and learn about your struggles and where you are now and what you're working on. We'll have the links down below to everything, and including your link to your fundraiser for your new film and everything else. That if there's anything you want to send me to add into the description as well, go ahead and feel free. But yeah, I mean, what a time to be a film lover, and especially if you like indie films. It's just insane. And also seeing all these indie films be in the big screen now, like, it's insane to see what's happening. But yeah, this was absolutely amazing. And Mike, thank you so much for taking the time out of the day to come and chat with us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just saying thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. And it is truly a great time to be an indie filmmaker and indie film lover. Like, I'm going to go see Bloody Axe Wound in the theater, too. I'm like, oh, cool. I try every time there's an indie movie that makes a theatrical appearance, I try to get there to support it, because that's just, it's wild. It's like the studios they went from having like 400 movies of like, low to mid budgets to like $5 billion movies a year instead. And now they're starting to creep back into like, you know what? People do want to watch weird, smaller budgeted stuff. So it's awesome to see, like, indie films in a theater. It's like, whoa.
For sure.
So great. So if nothing else, guys, go out there and support physical media and support theatrical runs of indie flicks.
Hell yeah, man.
Hell
yeah, dude. I can't wait to check out the Dead format, dude. Dustin sold me on that shit once he said the name. Dude, I knew exactly what it was going to be about.
All the updates that Mike's been posting on Facebook and everything about the covers and the art for it is amazing, and I'm stoked for it.
Absolutely stoked. I hope it lives up to your expectations. I don't want to alien Romulus, you guys.
Oh no.
Alien Romulus.
We've been calling you Fede too.
I should be so lucky to be compared to the insanely popular film whose movie made billions of dollars.
We'll give you an update after it comes out. We'll compare it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much. I'm going to go eat some chicken drumsticks because it's all I can afford as an indie filmmaker.
Hell yeah, man.
Do it.
Enjoy.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mike. And we'll see you guys on the next one.
Later.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.